This is the
Spartan Podcast.
where we illuminate the world of parenting children with autism. I'm CJ, a proud dad to a wonderful 6-year-old with autism. Through my journey, I've discovered the challenges, triumphs, and unique experiences that come with raising a child on the spectrum. Inspired by those experiences, I created this space where parents like you can find understanding, share stories, and learn from each other. Join me as we explore insights, strategies, and support, all while celebrating the brighter spectrum of our children's lives. Now, let's dive in and cast light on this path together. Joining me today on the Brighter Spectrum podcast is mother of 3, Jazmin Sanchez. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I really appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to our talk.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. So, Jazmin, before we sat down to record, we kind of talked a little bit about your experience as a parent. And you have 3 kids, 2 of them are on the spectrum. And kind of what is that like? Just kind of off the rip there. Uh, because I haven't really talked to anybody yet who has a mix of neurotypical and neurodivergent kids. What are their interactions like? What is that like dealing with them as all 3 on a daily basis?
So I feel like a lot of people haven't met someone who has 2 kiddos on the spectrum that are completely opposite. Sometimes they're like very similar. So my two, so my daughter, she's the oldest, and she's very what they would call super high functioning. She's actually in general education, um, and she's verbal, and she's thriving right now. She does have mild cerebral palsy because she's an extreme toe walker ever since she started walking. She was always a toe walker. And then I have my son, which is the youngest, and he is nonverbal, and he is in autistic support classroom, and he uses a speech device to communicate. So it's like so different because they have such different needs. Like it's not like, oh, we're all going the same way. Like it's one's over here and one's over there. So it's been quite the journey, but every day is like a new learning experience for us, and I kind of just learn to take it day by day because yeah, it's different.
Yeah, I bet. And like between the siblings, how is their interactions? Do they like clash? Do they not understand each other? Do they have like a really close bond? What's that like?
So my daughter, she considers my youngest a baby still. So she doesn't really get why he doesn't talk, and we try to explain to her. So she kind of sees him as a baby, and sometimes she gets like nervous, like if he's having like a meltdown, she gets kind of nervous around him because he could be a little bit loud. So of course she's also on the spectrum, so she kind of like steers away. Like she'll give him hugs and here and there, but she kind of does her own thing. And I have my oldest son. Um, he doesn't have any, he's not on the spectrum or anything. So her and him are very close. And then my oldest is very close to my youngest as well. So he'll interact with both of them, but them two, they don't interact much.
Hmm. So there's like the typical sibling rivalry where they're like fighting with each other and stuff.
I wouldn't say they fight, but they kind of like just one looks this way and the other one looks the other, like, okay, like don't touch my stuff, and that's it. So they're pretty funny together, and seeing them interact is very interesting sometimes because I would say like last year is when my daughter started kind of interacting more with him. But prior to that, like they would see each other in the hallway and she would kind of just like walk past him. So we really worked on her, like, say hi to your brother, like, that's your brother. And I mean, they're here together all the time. So we really work, like, we're working on that with her.
Hmm. Well, it's kind of nice that like instead of a lot of times I think like with kids and stuff when they don't understand something that can elicit like negative responses. And it's kind of nice that she's like instead of being mean to him or anything. She's just like, I don't get you, so I'm just not gonna really
Yes.
interact. Just kind of look at you, you know.
Yeah, she does. That's exactly what she does. She kind of just looks. She's like, "Okay, what are you doing?" So it's very, like I said, sometimes their interactions are very interesting to watch, and like at least they don't fight, and like I said, they just steer their own way. So
Okay. Um, so I guess from here, I'd really like to take me through the story. Like you have two kids on the spectrum, and it seems like they're on pretty opposite ends of the spectrum. One's not, you know, really
yes,
aggressively autistic, and then the other one is like, really high level there.
yes,
So um what was that like? And you had like your first experience with the one, and then the next experience is obviously different. So tell us your story. Like what was that like, finding out, and then you get the next one and you find out but it's like different. So walk me through that.
yes. Okay, so they in 2018, actually September 11th, they were actually diagnosed together. The My youngest was 1 and my oldest was 2 at the time. So, it all started when my youngest, my son, he had like low muscle tone, and he also had was diagnosed with hydrocephalus, a very mild case, and he was about 9 months old. So he couldn't like crawl, he couldn't sit up, and we were like, "Oh, this is different." So we started with early interventions with him. I was not like I wasn't very like aware of, I guess, what was going on. I just knew I needed to get him the services. So I kind of was like, like trying to figure out what this all could lead to. So he started physical therapy, and he also started speech and just everything that they bring through early intervention. And they had seen my daughter while they were here at my house. And they kind of looked at me and they said, like, do you want to get her evaluated? And I was like, wait, what? Because at the time she was still 1. So they're very close in age. They're only like 350 days apart. They didn't even make a year apart. They're very close in age. So they kind of saw her and she was toe walking, and just like she was like very sensory seeking.
Hmm.
Um at things that I wasn't like, aware of at the time. I knew it was different from my firstborn, but I just thought, she was just little and just like, learning her way around. So then we started taking her to like malls and stores, and we would take her to the park, and I just noticed so many different things, like like she wouldn't go onto the grass or the mulch, like she was like very like weird about it. So we were like, wait, like this is different. So then I had her evaluated through early intervention, and she also wasn't speaking like much at the time. So they started with speech and all of that, and I still had no, like nothing was leading me to, oh, both of my kids have autism, like nothing, like I don't know, like I don't know if I was blind to it, but nothing was like leading me to that. I was just like, thinking they had just different development than my firstborn.
Hmm. Hmm.
So finally, one of my daughter's special instructors through early intervention. I remember her just talking to me and telling me like, "Hey, you should see them, like have them seen with a developmental pediatrician." And gave me like like the words like, "Hey, like they could be on the spectrum." And at that time I was like, "Wait, what?" So I kept thinking in my head, I'm like, wait, let me go on Google and let me do some research. So then I did some research, and everything, like all of their, I guess, signs and I guess you could say symptoms were like leading everything I would type out. It was like autism, autism, autism. So right there I started thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe both of them have autism. And at the time, the wait time to get into a developmental ped, which is probably still the same. It's like a year, over a year. So I was like, okay, well, let's, I'll call. The doctors at the time were not concerned. We actually switched doctors like a couple months after, because when I did express my concerns, one of the doctors grabbed like a book and kind of like slammed it on the table, and they both looked over, and he said, "Oh, they don't have autism." And then from there I was like, "Oh, okay."
What?
Yes. Yeah, yes, that was like a very like, okay. And at the time I'm like, "Oh, maybe they don't." I don't, like I said, I wasn't very aware, and I didn't have much knowledge on autism at the time. So I was just like, "Okay." So, anyway, we found another doctor. We got a referral for developmental peds, and um finally we got in, but we actually got in only, it took 3 months because there was a new doctor that had come on to, I guess, locally. So we were able to get in 3 months,
That's
and
crazy fortunate. It took, my son over a year to get his appointment.
yes, and we had an appointment for like a year after, but then one of the early intervention, I think it was the speech, told us like, hey, they had just opened up a new developmental ped is here in LVHN. I said, oh. So I quickly called, and we were able to get in. And so that same, then, like I said, September 11th, we went in, and I still kind of was just like, oh, let's see what happens. The doctor was like, she took her time examining them, and she told me, she was like, okay, so like after an hour of examining them, she kind of just
Mhm.
gave me like the paperwork, and she told me, yeah, they both have autism. And I was like, wait, what? I was still just like, not like, it wasn't like, excuse me, I wasn't processing correctly. So I was just like, okay. So from there, I kind of was like, oh, so today they're getting an autism diagnosis. And she was like, yep, they both have autism. And she gave me like the papers of the list of everywhere to go, and who to call and what to do from there. My daughter at the time, and still, she's 8 now, she will be 9 in October. She was an extreme toe walker and still is. So she was sent over to like sports medicine to kind of evaluate her feet. And we went on the journey with that, and she's had Botox treatments on her calves, and they do serial casting to make her like adjust her feet so that they're able to be flat. So
Right.
she went through that 3 different times, um, throughout her, I think, from the age of 2 to now, but she's still an extreme toe walker. Like, her feet don't go flat at all, so that's, like, something that they say can come with autism. And then, my son, he's, nonverbal, and we've heard him say words throughout his 7 years of life, like, here and there, but we haven't heard much. And sometimes he'll say something, and then he won't say something again for another 6 months. Like, he'll say a word. Last year, it was the first time ever he said, "I love you," and that was like, that was it. And that was it. That's all I had to hear.
Yeah,
So
man. It's so nice, like, the very first time they do that, like, you just, like, wanna sit down and cry, right?
that's
Like
what I did. That's what I did. I couldn't believe it. And then, like I said, I was like, okay, we're good. Like, we're good. Like, this is great. And he hasn't really said much ever since that. But like I said, after that, it was like, okay, we're good. But he uses a speech device. He's very good with his speech device. He uses touch chat. He's had it since he was 5 years old. So he's now going to be 8 in October. So, but yeah, I don't know, I think it's been like a very different journey for both of them, because he's been less like to the doctors and for appointments. Sorry, my daughter, she's been to so many appointments and just like so many testing because she also has like staring spells. But she's the high functioning one in general education. So it's just been a really different journey for both of them.
Oh,
So, yeah.
we all just called that daydreaming, right?
Yeah, well, that's what I thought it was. But then someone had said something about staring spells. So we took her. I actually wrote a message in the portal to her doctor, and I said, "Hey, she's been having staring spells ever since I could remember, and someone said those could be silent seizures. So I
Oh,
just want to
good.
see. Yeah. So from there, we had her get an EEG done, and
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
showed like very high brain waves. And he said that when we went to a neurologist, he told us, he was like, those brain waves are not staring spells. They could be, a genetic trait, or they could be epilepsy. So we're like, wait, what? from from staring spells to something like this. So we're still on the journey to figure out what is causing those sharp waves in her brain. We're actually waiting for some genetic tests to come in. She got genetic testing done.
Mm-hmm.
We're just trying to find out before, like, if it is epilepsy, then there's a couple of things that they could do to kind of like prevent that from happening. So, yeah, that's that's how that's going.
Yeah, I mean, m- hopefully it's just a genetic trait, but I mean, if it's epilepsy, they can treat that. So,
Yes, yes.
so it's not the worst. I mean, it's definitely probably nerve wracking. Your blood pressure's probably up fairly regularly.
Yeah, most of the time. Actually, no, I went to the doctor and they said I had low blood pressure. And she explained to me sometimes that can happen in athletes because they're in like resting state. I'm not an athlete. So I just think about like maybe it's because I run so much with the kiddos, like running, like,
Gotcha.
so no high
Got
blood pressure.
I'll tell you what, that is one thing about them. Like these kids on the spectrum, they run like greased lightning, and
Yes.
it takes so much to keep up after them. And then it's like their energy, they harvest it from the universe, and it's just infinite. And you're like, I'm gonna take them to the park and make them tired. And you come back and you're like, man, I need a nap. They're like, can we go back to the park? You're like, come
Yeah,
on,
they're
man.
ready for a whole nother session. It's
um,
very true.
so do you have them like in like any like therapies? Like, are they any of them doing speech or OT or ABA, anything like that?
So both of them have ABA therapy. So throughout the summer, my son actually did social skills groups. They were in ABA since so they were diagnosed 2018. So 2019 up until now, they have had ABA. And I used to do ABA in the home, so I would do like 20 hours with both of them. So they both had a RBT here and a behavioral specialist. So we would do things in the community up until
Mm.
they started school. And that's when the wait lists weren't as crazy as well. So I was able to get in, and I was able to have of quality staff, because that's always been like the thing, is finding people of quality to work with them and their specific needs. So we've definitely were blessed with great staffing throughout the years.
See, that's awesome. Can we talk about ABA for a second? Because I've the guest before you, who was on, Joanne, she's going through ABA, and then I don't know how many of the support groups you're a part of on Facebook. 'Cause I think I found you in the local one.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I see a lot of people posting about ABA, and there's like this really diversified set of opinions on it. Some people are like real hardcore on one side, where oh, it's child
Yes.
abuse, and like some other people are like, well, this is great. This is the best thing that ever happened to my kid. And I would
Yes.
kind of want to ask you the same question that I asked Joanne, and it's like, what is your opinion on it? What was that process like? And would you recommend it to other parents?
So I do I do really recommend ABA. I think it was life changing for me and my kids. Um, you do have to have amazing staff. You do have to have staff who has knowledge. That is definitely like the hard part in the field now, is finding that. I don't think that it's the easiest thing. I don't think sometimes us as moms we're like so like we our kids with special needs and just our children in general um sometimes we want to baby them and
Hmm.
protect them and just like it's really hard seeing like moments where your kids are so frustrated, but we have to go through those motions in order for them to get to, the successful moments. So, we've been like I said, we've been through ABA for years now, and there was moments that I was just like, I don't know how I feel about this, but I would see the success at the end. Like I would see why ABA is the way it is and why um, they have to go about things in certain ways so that the kids can have higher success rates and live a more, I guess you could say, just a easier life, which kind of like it sucks to say because it's like sometimes you want the world to adjust to them, but like it's really just not going to happen. um so I don't know, I really do, I think ABA was life changing for us, and um, I would always recommend it. But like I said, the number one thing is your staff. Like who you have working with your children is very important. And always stick with your intuition. I can tell you, my youngest, there was probably like 4 or 5 RBTs that worked with him that I just, the next day I was like, no, no, not because they weren't good, but they weren't the right fit for my child. They could work with maybe someone else's child and have them thrive. But you, as a parent, like you feel it right away. You're like, ah. So I did go through a lot of RBTs with my son, and with my daughter, I was definitely blessed. Like we stayed with the same RBT for years.
Mm.
And she stayed with us for years through pre-K till now. She's in third grade. So she just finished with services in school. So yeah,
Yeah, so it was definitely like a vetting process then, like really just to find the right fit, the person who's using like techniques that really seem to have a positive impact, and then you were able to go with that person.
exactly, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, it's something you said kind of made me laugh a little bit. You said like the typical like autism mom or like the autism parent, because it kind of is right. Like we do want to baby them, but like it's a whole different brand of wanting to baby them. Like if you're at the playground and like a neurotypical kid like falls over and scrapes the knee, mom runs over. Oh my god, are you okay? Let's clean that up. And like as autism parents, our kids are basically bulletproof. They could fall out of a tree and like rub dirt in it. You're fine, but as soon as like we start seeing them have a social interaction, we're on high alert. Like, oh my god, is this going to be okay?
Is this happening? It's so true. Like that's the thing. If you get it, you get it. Like I've learned that. Like when you get it, you just get it.
it,
But it's
it,
very true.
it is just like the complete opposite of a parent dealing with a neurotypical kid. They're like, meh, they're fine. If they don't get along, they won't play together. But it's like, eh, if our kids don't get along, mine's not going to understand that. And he's just going to keep irritating that other kid.
Exactly. Exactly. It's so true. So we're like we put our binoculars on, we're sitting at the bench. We're like ready, like what's going on? We start walking over.
Right.
So I get it.
And other parents are always looking at you like, oh, yeah, they're fine. I'm like, no, yours is fine. Like, they're not getting hurt. That's not the
They
part I'm
don't know
worried
what can
about.
happen next. Yes, they have no idea what can happen next.
Mine's invulnerable to pain. I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
gosh. Uh, it certainly is like a completely different perspective. And then, and it's kind of fun watching neurotypical parents too, because we look at them the same way they look at us. Like,
Yes.
you're looking, I'm like, wow, you're really not going to be worried about that? All right.
It's so true. It is so true.
That doesn't scare you? What's that like?
Meanwhile, like the other autism parents around are like on high alert too, like, oh, we see your son or we see your daughter and we see ours too. So we're always, always on high alert.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, oh, and it's also so different too because, like, you're at that same playground or whatever, and, like, if someone's trying to steal kids, they usually have to, like, use candy, and, like, with ours, it's like, "Hey, this is soft if you touch it." They're like, "I'm in, let's go."
They're like, do you have Doritos?
Right, right, like,
It's so true. I have sand. Oh my goodness.
and you're always
That's
just, like,
how it
watching
goes.
that. Yeah, right, and, like, they won't scream or anything, they're just like, "Alright, I'll go with you, why not?" Like, "No,
Exactly.
no," like, oh, man.
So funny.
Okay, so, uh, what is it, what is it like, for you to, uh deal with the different types of, because you had mentioned that your daughter's in like a general studies class, your son is in the autism support, and what is it like balancing between them and then having to also help your neurotypical kid with their homework and stuff, and like, because like it's three different points of focus because they're in three completely different programs, right? So
Yes.
what is that like? What is dealing and balancing that like for you?
So the number one thing is I learned over the years was to give myself a lot of grace. Um, I always felt like I had to do it all and I had to do it perfect for them. And I do my absolute best. But I know that sometimes, like, sometimes there's different needs that are higher. So I always go for, like, what's the higher need at the moment. I definitely, my firstborn, we do a lot of like quality time things together because, he's the oldest and he definitely, needs a break from the two youngest. Um, I've learned to give him like quality time and I've learned to make sure to always give him that, like always, like no matter what, like if I have to take, the time to do the things that I need to do with him. And uh, just learning to balance that. I'm still like kind of learning, but it's just been like I said, just give myself a lot of grace and just one thing at a time. Like one thing at a time and having some type of balance. I don't know how that's like possible with three kids with three different, needs. But trying to have a little bit of balance and, one thing at a time.
Yeah, yeah, and well, I mean, like, balance kinda like, right, like, so some of the behaviors that the younger 2 would exhibit in a classroom where, like, the school would call you, "Hey, they're having a rough day, need you to come get them," and this is, like, normal, they can't really control that, so it's kinda like you take it day by day, and obviously you don't punish for that sort of behavior because,
Yeah.
well, it's part of the condition,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
if your neurotypical kid freaks out in class and throws a desk, obviously there's consequences for that. Like, now you can't be
Yeah.
doing that. Like, how do you explain that to him where it's like, hey, like, I have expectations of you that I don't have of these two because they're on a completely different set of expectations. Like, and how do you kind of work that so that he understands?
So since like the beginning, I have always been like really open with him and he's been to like all of the therapies with us and he's been here when they have done ABA and everything. So I've always told him like, hey, like, there's different like needs with them, and you know better. Like I always tell him like you know better. And I kind of have always been like real open with him like hey, like this is why they're doing this. But like you know not to do that, or you know not to act like that. I've definitely been blessed because he is really really a good kid. And that's not just cuz I'm his mom, but he's a very good kid and he's very helpful. And I feel like he just gets it. He is 11 years old. So, um, he is getting older and he is kind of like figuring it out little by little, but he definitely has always been like involved with them. And so he even knows a little bit of ABA techniques. So
Hmm.
yeah, so being there since he was little up until now, and seeing all that, like I said, I've always involved him because, it's sometimes it's like you want to like you would keep your other children away from seeing that, or just not bringing them to appointments because it's easier to just be able to, leave them rather than bring all of them together. But I was like, no, I want him to experience this so he can understand. So that's definitely benefited us because he really gets it. So yeah.
It sounds like he's really managed to mature in a way that takes most of us to like 27, 28 years old to really figure
Yes.
out. Man, that's great. And
Yeah.
it seems like you got really blessed on that end with, a kid who isn't so concerned about like, well, this isn't fair and just kind of gets it.
Yes, yeah, I don't think yeah, I've never heard that from him, and like I said, he's definitely, you know, very mature for his age, and it's like I said, it's a blessing, it really is,
Hmm.
and he's a great kid.
Would you attribute that then to just like, yeah, your decision to keep him included in everything?
Yes, I think that that definitely has something to do with it because he's seen so many adults working with the children, with my children, so it's just like he has been able to be like, "Oh, well, this is how this goes," and he has heard so many conversations with the therapists or the doctors, and I definitely think that has helped him.
That's great. And honestly, I think that that's definitely the right way to go. And I think a lot of parents should be doing that. Just because a lot of us like will try to like protect our kids and like try to water things down because we think that they're not able to understand. Where like
Yes,
just keeping them included, like, hey, this is an adult conversation, but I'm going to let you listen in on it because I need you to understand what's going on. It definitely,
exactly.
yeah, it definitely sounds like that would definitely be the way to go.
Yeah,
Um,
it definitely has worked here. So
Yeah. Yeah, I at this point though in the conversation, I'd really like to shift over to you because and for my regular listeners, they've heard me say this a million times already, but it's like I kind of feel like when we have these conversations, we always strictly talk about kids and what they're going through and all this and and I mean that's important obviously. There are kids, we love them to tears. But
yes,
what I also feel like is like the parents kind of get ignored in a way where there's this like sort of stigma where like if you have like feelings going on that maybe you shouldn't, maybe that kind of makes you like a bad person, maybe you should feel guilty. And because we don't talk about that with each other, a lot of us sit there and we like simmer in it and it causes depression and we do feel that guilt because we feel like this isn't normal, no one's talking about this isn't normal, I shouldn't feel this way, I shouldn't have negative feelings at times when dealing with these kids. It's not their fault, like we all know it's not their fault, but
yeah.
we're human, we have those feelings. So if if you wouldn't mind kind of getting into it, like, from the beginning when you found out that they had autism to the point you are now, where did your mental state take you and what were some of your challenges and how did you overcome those?
Um, so I definitely think from the beginning to now, like I have grown so much like mentally, and I'm definitely much stronger. I think that in the beginning, when they did receive their diagnosis, I was kind of like in, I think you could call it fight or flight mode to
Mhm.
get them all of their services, get them to their therapies. We were at therapy every day. We had someone. in the house every day. So I didn't have time to process like a lot of my emotions because I would, like I said, I was kind of like in fight or flight. Like they need these services, like they need like to get to where they need to be before they start school in a couple years. So I don't think I took the time to process my emotions at the time. I do know my faith has been like the number one reason why I have kept such a positive mind. um, it definitely hit me some days where I was like, wow, like I know I didn't have to go through all this with my firstborn, and now here I am with my two youngest, and it's hard. It was really hard some days, and I felt like sometimes I couldn't. Like I was like, oh, I can't, and that's the truth. But like I said, my faith kept me going. I have very strong faith, and every single day I would be like, God, get me through today. God, get me through today. And I know that I gave like those. It was like a good what, like 4 3 4 years, I gave everything, every single thing, like my last drop, to my kids, and seeing where they are today because of that has definitely been the prize. um but there was days, like I said, where I felt like, oh, this is like, too much. But I'm very faith driven, and a lot of prayer. And like I said, I've grown now a lot mentally because I've learned to process all of my emotions and feel. Like I let myself feel. Like my daughter had a Botox treatment maybe last year, but she was a lot older now, so she understood a lot more, and that was like so heartbreaking for me to see her go through that. But I let myself feel like I was sad, and I felt like defeated. I cried. And like, I have to cry, I'll cry. Like, and that was like always the biggest thing, is like you have to let yourself feel those feelings and be real honest with yourself. If you don't have anyone to talk to, just be real honest with yourself. And it's okay to have days where you're just not okay. Um and it's okay to be sad and feel like it's hard. Like sometimes you do mourn the things that you wanted your kids to do. Sometimes your child can't play soccer because of their special needs, and that was something that you really dreamed of, and it's not something that's possible. And I've been there and I've felt that before, and it's okay to feel that. So like I said, over the years, I've learned it was okay to feel because I feel like I didn't let myself in the beginning like feel like I was just on go. Like I would just be like, all right, let's go. Like we got this. Um, but I do see a lot of beauty like in our journey. So I've learned to do like take the time to find the beauty and accept this is the cards that of life that we were given. And I know God has a purpose for my children, and I'm here to hear their testimony when they're older, because I know that they definitely have a huge testimony to give. And yeah.
It's it's very, very true. I think one of the biggest things for me when my son was diagnosed was like that sort of realization that if I wanted to just get up and go out somewhere, like that wasn't even an option, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of like I had some really bad feelings about that at first, and I was just like, man, like uh, and like my son's my number one thing in my life, and that there's never been a
Yes.
question about that. But it was like a sort of this like process, this like realization where it's just like, man, and then like you're kind of depressed about that, and then you feel guilty because you're like, man, it's not his fault. I shouldn't feel that way. And then you kind of get down on yourself for having very real human emotions, and then
Yes.
coming to terms with that is just so hard. And then when you finally do, it's nice. I mean, you kind of have like a nice scenario, right? In a couple of years, especially with the maturity that your eldest is showing, maybe you'd be in a position where he could watch them for an hour or two. And you can go get a little adult
Yes.
time, which is great, you know.
Yes.
Um, But yeah, I mean, there's some of us, I mean, most of us, I imagine, have some sort of like a support system, like grandparents or something that's like understanding, and maybe once in a while you can get out of there. But 99% of your time, it's like, if my kids can't do it, I can't,
Yes. And
you
that's
know?
the thing with us special needs parents. There's a lot of things that just don't accommodate our kids. And we're like, oh, we just, rather than be there and sweat bullets, like we just rather, let's sit this one out. So that's like always been my thing is like letting, like if my friends invite me on a play date somewhere that I just don't think can accommodate my children, I tell them, like I'm real honest. I'm like, I don't think it can accommodate my kiddos, but thank you so much. Like, so and
Yeah.
like you said, having a support system is very, I know a lot of people might not have one, and that's really hard. And I can't like imagine. I do have um my parents that are there, and they, once in a while they'll take the kiddos, and that's like they have no idea how much like that helps, just like that hour or two away, and then you come back, you're recharged and ready to keep going. So
Mhm.
finding that is very like important.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, definitely, and, that's kinda like for me on my end, it's like the one nice thing about me being separated from his mother, is that when she has him, I can go blow off a little steam, and it's not that I don't want
Yes,
him around. I would have him 24/7 and be happy to do it.
exactly.
But it is nice that when, it's her day to have him, I have this opportunity to go and do like some adult stuff and blow off some steam and just be like, all right, cool. And then I have him like the next day or something. I'm like, okay, yeah, back
Yeah,
into
here we
parent mode.
go.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just feel like a lot of parents out there, I see it all the time, or they're like, I don't have a life. And it's like, well, you do. It's just not the life that you envisioned for yourself.
Exactly. And it's
And
learning to accept that. Like that's the hardest part. It's like I said, once you learn to accept that, like, oh, my life isn't gonna be this way. It's gonna be that way. Like, and learning how to adjust. Like that's what it took for me. I had to learn how to accept and adjust to the new life that we have. So that's like the hardest part, and then I get it. Like sometimes it could be like, "Oh, I wish I could just go here with them or do this or that," and it's not. But then find the things that that you can do.
mhm. Yeah, it's actually one of the reasons I joined. Like, I'm in like 5 or 6 of the autism support groups, and I joined the one that's, local to our area just because I was kinda hoping maybe there'd be like maybe I could get like a little group of parents together, and like we could like take these kids to the playground because all
Yeah,
we could sit there and socialize, but like all of us get it. So if someone's mid-sentence and one parent runs off in a direction,
we
you
get
know
it.
right, no one's gonna be like, "Where are you going?" We're like, you're gonna look and be
Exactly.
like, "Is my kid messing up too? Like, where's he?" You know? Yeah, no one's
It's
gonna get
so
upset about
true.
it. Yeah.
It's so true. That's
Yeah.
how I feel though. Like definitely like even in moments that I've picked up my son from like social skills group, you'll see like one of the little guys or a little girl like having a meltdown on the side over, and we just kind of just go with the flow. We're like, "Oh, okay." It's just so like normal to us that we're just like, "Oh, okay, we get it."
Yeah, yeah, and we don't even bat an eye at that stuff anymore.
Exactly.
And, like, other parents
Exactly.
are looking around, they're like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" You're like, "It's not really that serious, like,
It's not that serious. Exactly.
they'll be fine. We gotta let them work it out."
Yes. Yeah, you're
Someone's
fine.
mom is gonna give them a hug. Like
It's so true, very true.
yeah, yeah. So, you know, um with having all those feelings and like working through those challenges and stuff, where did you find your happy medium? Is there like any activities that you do specifically with your kids? It's like your thing, like that they actually end up looking forward to as part of their routine, to like kind of like increase that bond you have with them? Or is there like anything that like the minute you get a little bit of alone time, you have sort of this like guilty pleasure, you like run off and like, I'm gonna do this without these kids real fast?
So, with the kids, we have definitely found, like, exploring, all of the different parks, like, that's our thing. We're like, "Okay, let's go," because it can accommodate all 3 of them. So, my oldest loves basketball. We always look for a basketball court, and then there's, like, a nice playground. So, we've definitely somewhere that can accommodate all three of them, we've definitely found our joy going to parks and open fields and just things like that. Like we enjoy that time. And for me, like when I do have like a minute that the kids aren't with me, I have three wonderful sister-in-laws that I can call and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? Like, where are you? Like, I have, we have some time. Let's do something." And, so that's kind of what that's kind of what I do.
That's nice. So at least you get that little bit of adult time, which I feel like is really
Yes.
important. I feel like a lot of us feel like we just don't have and can't um, kind of get that adult time in at all.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of us are in like a position where like family members don't get it. We have grandparents that just don't want to be involved because they just don't understand,
Yeah.
and we get put into this like bubble and we're sort of outcasted, um, which in a way like really, really sucks. But
Yes.
it is what it is. But at least like if we have these ideas flowing around, maybe somebody will hear something and be like, you know what, that is maybe something I could do. um, hey, wait, when you go to these parks and stuff, all of us, we all carry a backpack. Kind of like what's in yours. Because I know when I go, it's diapers, wipes, juice cup, and the biggest first aid kit you've ever seen. Um, s- so what does yours
So
look like?
oh my goodness. So mine's just, the diapers, wipes, typical. I carry probably like 10 different snacks because my youngest only likes like crackers and peanut butter crackers and Doritos. That's like his thing. And then with the backpack, I do carry oh, this is funny. I carry a bin of Legos, and it has the sticky blocks, and it
Mhm.
also has like mini Legos because my firstborn, I mean my youngest, he brings that with him everywhere. It's been to Florida with us, it's been to Puerto Rico with us. This bin of Legos, and he also carries two blankets. So I walk around like getting to the parks with the backpack, the bin full of all of these things, and everyone's just like, "Oh, okay." Like she brings extra toys. Like, no, we can't leave the house without the extra toys.
It's like a
He won't.
calling card, right? You see another parent with something like that, and you're like, autism parent.
Yes, and like you get it, and that's the thing. I every time before we leave the house, like I'll like now they have school, so I pack all their backpacks in the car, boom, and I have to bring that bin, or he's not getting in the car. He won't get in the car. He won't go anywhere. He doesn't take it to school. That's the only place where he won't take the bin in. But everywhere else, the bin is with us.
Yeah, see, I got lucky with that. I don't have to really carry too many extra toy. A couple of Matchbox cars once in a while.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
okay.
I got lucky. I took mine outside and I was like, I'm gonna show you what daddy played with as a kid. You see that? That's a
Yes.
rock. And you see that? That's a stick. And that over there is mud. And he was like, all
Ex-
right, bet. I know what to do with that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yep. And then I come home and then the women in my life are just looking at me like, it'd be like my mom. My mom laughs, but like my girlfriend, or if I take him home to his mother and he's covered in dirt, she like looks at me like, "Why, dude? Like he's messed up." I'm like, "Well,
He
it's
had
good. It's
fun.
good for him. It's good for him. We'll put some hair in his chest." They're like, "He's 6. Come on." Like,
That's amazing. I love that. But no, I that's what I carry around. We have tried like everything. Like I've tried to leave it. I've tried, but he needs it. So here we
yeah.
are.
Yeah, hey, we're approaching the end of the show, and there's a couple more things I really want to cover.
Yes.
First, was there anything that like you personally found just really frustrating? For example, like right now, I desperately want my child to use the toilet because he's going to be 7, and I am so incredibly sick of changing diapers. I
Yes.
do what I have to do, but right now, it's just like, man, I really just want you to use the potty. And it's a very frustrating time for me. And like, I just accept that I get frustrated. I never take it out on him, but sometimes I
Yes.
have to like step to the side, breathe for a minute, like, oh man, this sucks. And then just go back to doing what I have to do. So like, do you have anything like that going on?
So I'm in a similar situation. So my son's only well, he's 7, so he's only what, a year older than your son. So we're in the same situation with trying to potty train, but just not having success in it. So it does get frustrating because I feel like he can, so knowing that he can do something and not actually doing it, like it's really hard. But like I said, it's kind of not his fault. But then again, it's like I know he can, so we're just, very hopeful. And another thing, just in general, as like being an autism parent and um is definitely the amount of doctors that leave the practice. Like when you're like I had a great developmental ped. She left the practice. I had a good sports medicine. She left the practice. So as an autism parent, like you build these, relationships with these people and then boom, they leave the practice. And so I think those two things have definitely been like frustrating on this journey.
Mm. Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
I never really considered that, and it definitely makes sense that that'd be really frustrating because you have like this like established relationship with these people. Your kids are familiar with them, and then they're gone. We have to change that routine. And you're like, well, is there going to be a meltdown or not?
Exactly. Like they already knew your child and you already been to 3, 4 appointments and then boom, you have to find someone new. So, that's definitely frustrating
Hmm.
for me.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And then what I like to follow up, I really like to close conversations really with like a really positive note. So is there like maybe like 1 to 3 like real strong victories for your kids that really stick out to you?
So, one of like the biggest victories for one of my kiddos, my daughter, she did start kindergarten and it was like a very rough year. And it was like a lot of crying, a lot of meltdowns. Um Today she's in 3rd grade. And we haven't seen any of those behaviors in, I would say, like 3 years since after kindergarten. Once she finished kindergarten and we fought through that year, first, second, and now she's in 3rd, have been like so far such amazing years. So that has been like a really big victory for us because there was a time where her placement was going to change. They were going to send her to a different school that could accommodate her needs and her behaviors, and my heart was like, no, like I know she's fully capable of being where she's at. It's just going to take a little bit of time. And like I said, now she's in 3rd grade and she's thriving. So that's been like a huge victory for us. And just seeing that has been like the made us like the happiest. So we're so proud of her. Um, I would say that's one of the big ones. And like, um, I think we're still working on the other victories.
Hey, that's all right. One is better than none. And I know a lot of us, like, we don't really see a light at the end of that tunnel when it comes to some of these behaviors. So even just that one story, I'm sure is going to bring somebody some level of hope.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I guess at this point, um, like, is there been a victory for you? Have you maybe worked past some sort of mental block or maybe some sort of emotion that you weren't understanding? Has there been anything for you specifically?
Um, I feel like my biggest like roadblock that has been like a victory was just learning to adjust. like I said, I guess before, like learning to adjust to the new life that we do live and just like accept so many things that we can and can't do. So I feel like that's been like my definitely my biggest victory is like finding like the happiness and the joy um that this journey brings, because it is very hard, and I know that, but there is beauty in it. So that's definitely been my victory, and just having like such a positive mind, like no matter what, like that's what I try my best to do. And just um finding other moms to relate to, that's that, or just parents in general that you can relate to, um is definitely great. So, and giving them positive, feedback, and just, I don't know, I think being positive is definitely like a big thing for me, and like victories. So, yeah.
Awesome. I mean, hey, that's a huge one. I know a lot of us struggle with that. So, the fact that you're able to find that is definitely maybe brings somebody else a little bit of hope that, hey, I can get there too. So,
Yes, yes.
yeah, yeah. At this point, is there anything you'd like to plug or promote? Do you have, I don't know, do you have a creator channel of your own? Maybe a blog that you do or anything like that?
Well, right now, not really. I did I did want to get into like content creating, but no, not at the moment. So if I ever do, I'll reach out to you.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have to bring you back then and let you tell us all about that.
Yes, sounds good.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Jasmine, I really appreciate you hanging out with me today. This has been a fun conversation. I'm really glad that I'm able to get some, real regular parents on and kind of have those humorous moments and whatnot with them. So, having you on here today has been a real pleasure for me.
I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure to be on today. And thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. In that case, I won't take up any more of your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yes, you too, then. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Brighter Spectrum podcast. If you have any comments, questions, or stories to share, or if you'd like to be a guest on the show, feel free to reach out to me at brighterspectrumpodcast@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, take care and keep shining a light on the journey of parenting.
Thank you for listening.